All right, everybody, welcome today. I have the indomitable Cory Stout. Yeah, also got some bongo skills he's showing off over there. Sitting in lovely Venice today, just going to have a quick chat. Known Cory for, when did we meet, Cory? Tell me your memory of us getting, becoming friends.
I think it was a little red notification on my Reddit account that I have a new message. I think I remember it as a message like, "Hey, I'm Mark. I have a thing called Warehouse Republic. Think you could use it. Check us out. Let's set up a meeting." So
outstanding.
I think we did like that. That's how we met. How did we become friends?
So, without names or anything like that, primarily because I can't remember her name. I said, "Where are you at? Where are you staying?" He's like, "I'm in Venice." I was like, "Oh, great. I come to Venice all the time. Let me take you out to dinner." And we went, and you were dating the redheaded woman at the time who I do.
Madeline.
Insta famous.
Yeah.
I do remember that. Yeah. And we went to, we met you guys out here, and you had those two. This is when
In the back.
You were living, in the tower, like right on the Venice boardwalk, and you had like basically a 200 square foot room on one side of the hall, and then one on the other side of the hall, you had another 200 square foot room.
Magic. Those days were magic. They were, man. Oh my God.
I remember that actually, we went to Rose Cafe that evening.
Yeah.
And that was actually one of the, probably one of the best. It was actually the thing that really got me. It's like, okay, I don't think this place is just hype. Like they've got good food. It was a great night.
You're a restaurant critic at heart. You know that? Like you long to be a restaurant, like, you really give people the info.
I love to eat. That's my vice, I would say. I'm going to do this. A very wise individual told me to do this overrated, underrated thing. Said it's a fun way to kind of get things going.
What are the rules?
So I'm just going to say something out there, and some of them are silly, some of them are like more interesting. But I think it'll help set the context, and it actually gives people kind of a little view into your thought process.
Let's do.
So,
Ready.
All right, just tell me with a little bit of explanation. Do you think it's overrated, underrated, or pass? All right, percussion massagers.
Percussion massagers, underrated.
Yeah?
Underrated.
Okay, why?
My first thing is the Chinese massagers on the boardwalk are just rated.
Okay.
And so if you put a percussion massager in their hand, suddenly they're doing something. Okay? It just allows you to get an angle, it's consistency. Massaging is a lot of work. I think if you're getting massage, you don't realize how much work it is, the person putting that pressure on you. So to have a little tool, a little assistance, I think is an underrated way to go. It expands the act of massage to a broader audience. Just more people who weren't willing to get in there with their hands before. Now they have a tool, they can easily do it. It just results in more people getting soothed.
So it's kind of like a hypochondriac's like gateway drug to like being willing to massage.
Yeah, yes. This gets you on the on-ramp. After that, you can go any direction. But like once you see how good the percussion is, you can get into some spaces.
I love it. All right. Owning old cars.
Owning old cars is a completely underrated experience.
Okay.
Imagine if your entire life was a parade and you're in it. Like, that's life. Now everyone's just waving at you, hoping you'll throw them some candy, like whatever. You're just in a parade and the whole world is just like, hey man, looking great. Like, the amount of people who would just like go out of their way just to pull up next to you and go, nice car, man. Like that's it.
So everybody has a little bit of context. What of the old cars that you do own, which one is your favorite? Which one do you is the most fun for you to drive with relation to interacting with being in the parade?
So the 1964 Mercury Comet Caliente that sold about a year ago, that was my favorite. It was a slow, giant boat, white convertible, and it was so easy to just jump into. So just as your friends or just pull up anywhere and someone sees you, they can just jump in. And it was just slow as she goes and had all the character and the patina you could ever want. And like that one really made me feel cool. Oh, it had a great lean to it. Leans are underrated.
Okay.
Which is you're in the driver's seat, right hand on the wheel, left hand leaning on the something. The windows roll down. Your elbows parked right there.
All right.
Then you get to kind of just lean back.
All right.
That car had it, man.
Okay. Overrated, underrated. Living on the boardwalk.
Living on the boardwalk is, oh man, it's tough. It's so expected. It's so easy for me to say underrated, and I know all the ways it is. But if you really have to live in here, it's slightly overrated because of the amount of chaos it introduces to your life, and you have to be vigilant against the chaos. And it's worth it. I'm still here, and I'm going to stay here. And I find the chaos to be worth it. But when I hear people walk by and they say, "Oh, can you imagine living there? It must just be a dream every day. It just must be just like paradise, utopia." Like, no, it's got its ups and downs. The juice is worth the squeeze. But I think based on other people's perception of how idyllic it is, I would say it's overrated to that view.
Okay.
But I love it.
Clearly. I mean, we're here. Every time I come here, I comment on how much I enjoy, your space, and appreciate that, you share it with everybody. But yeah, it makes that answer makes a lot of sense. All right. So we're getting to, another fun one, farmers markets.
Farmers markets, underrated. It's the absolute best thing you can do with your time and money. Your money's going to a real farmer who's delivering you really fresh food made in a sustainable way, in a healthy way. And if you find yourself at a farmer's market, you got there intentionally. So that means you're living your life with intention. You're not hungover. You didn't drink yourself silly the night before. You're there, and there's pretty girls everywhere, and they're all nice. And it's just, you just can't do anything better with your time and money than spend it at a farmer's market.
Okay. I like that. All right. All right, this is going to kind of help us get into the meat, I think, of the thing. So overrated, underrated, university education.
The education part, overrated. Overrated. We're in the age of information. We're swimming in information. Anything you really want to know, you can get to, and you can get to it when you need it. There's so much information thrown at us in college that even if the information is fine, it's too early. It's like, I can't even implement this. Like, why are you telling me how to spend this ad budget? I haven't even started a business yet. I don't even work anywhere yet. What am I going to do with this knowledge until then? I don't have enough buckets to keep it in. So the education part, overrated.
Okay. I like that. China, overrated, underrated.
Could you be any more specific? Just China? China?
Just China.
I think overrated. I think people are starting to wake up to the fact that it is a true global superpower, but I don't think people realize how rapidly aging their population is and how many structural, systemic, societal problems they're going to encounter in the next 10, 20 years that I don't see a solution to.
Yep. So kind of building on that, and part of why I think this is a good kind of jumping off point is because, I mean, both you and I rely on China. Like without China being there, it's like we don't have businesses really. I mean, you could figure it out. You could import from somewhere else. It just wouldn't be as, that's just the path that we chose. And then of course, with the warehouse, every single one of our customers, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3. But the vast majority of our customers are importing from China. And if they were to go elsewhere, they'd have to find other places in the United States, maybe down south in Mexico or Canada, and maybe Europe. But even likelihood is that if they didn't go to China, they'd be going to Vietnam or Japan or someplace. Like it'd be another Southeast Asian country. The China thing is interesting because, to your point, I mean, it's just like you look at the things where it's like their population's rapidly aging. I mean, it really is. I mean, they're having to import, the one-child policy with, and
disaster,
and favoring boys over girls was such a disaster. To your point, they're having to import, and in many cases, nefariously, uncles selling their nieces into to China from Thailand or other places it may be. I've heard stories from basically every place, and of course can't corroborate any of those myself, but I've heard enough of them independently that it seems like that's a thing. But there's the other aspects of we as a society, I feel like we like to have this you got to have a foe. You got to have your nemesis, if you will. And everybody speaks of China in this nemesis way.
Trump really used it as like I don't know what to call it, but yeah.
The China, like the way he would, it was shitty.
Yeah.
But if you look at all that, and it's like, I mean, when a society like that, okay, so do you think as they come to power, and it's like they are, and it's like, and to say that they shouldn't have some kind of, they shouldn't enjoy the things that we enjoy doesn't seem right. But as they come to power and everything like that, do you see a place where, are they going to be able to keep the lid on like their population? Are they going to continue to like hold that authoritarian kind of control? And, because like right now, government and business is inexorably linked. I mean, it's like the manufacturers don't do anything without somebody like directly represented from the PRC. I mean, the Communist Party, the CCP, excuse me. So are they going to be able to keep the lid on it and keep everybody walking in line and really just doing what they're doing? Or do you think we're going to see this cultural revolution over there eventually? And if we do, how's that going to affect our supply chains?
So no, I don't think they're going to have a cultural revolution. I think the Chinese people are very committed to the party. I didn't see a lot of revolutionist thinking. I don't see a lot of Che Guevara T-shirts running around China. I mean, they're swimming in prosperity, so it's easy to keep enough people reasonably happy to keep the party in power. As a system, I don't think systems that suppress dissent, I don't think they're bound to thrive in the long run. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what's going to happen, though. I think they'll just slowly sink as people get more and more fearful. I don't think there's going to be a revolt. I don't think the citizens, I mean, they don't have a Second Amendment. They don't have just the attitude to rebel. So they're going to be what they're going to be. And no, I don't see a cultural revolution in the next decade or two. So how will our supply chains will be fine, because that's the one thing the government's going to focus on to make sure they keep up and running. Okay, yeah, maybe our pensions are failing or whatever, but you guys better make sure those widgets are made, because that's what we're thriving on, is the export stuff.
All right, so our supply chains are intact. Now,
yes.
I'm going to back up a little bit, because it's like if we don't have to talk about like how we're going to like any kind of like, are you hedging or anything like that with like, did you find a manufacturer in Mexico that can work or whatever? Talk to me about the genesis. First of all, let's tell the listeners like what do you do? What was kind of the genesis of it? And let's just, that'll be a good place. And we'll ask questions, follow up from there.
Okay. I started Woody's almost 10 years ago. Woody's is wood sunglasses company. Mm-hmm. And I was living in Guangzhou, China in 2009, 2010. Started a watch company. I grew it, but I grew it too big, too quickly, and kind of collapsed under its own weight. Then my two friends that kind of invited me out there, they said, hey, we found out they're making wood sunglasses. This seems to kind of be the next newest thing that they figured out how to make. Cory, you can make a really cool brand out of this. We could sell it. So they were the production guys. I was the website and marketing guy. Mm-hmm. And then the third guy was from Groupon. And he said, I'll give you a front page deal if you let me invest in your company. And we were like, wow, that's shady, but we'll take it. Let's do it. So we pulled together $180,000 and we made 10,000 pieces. And he got us on all the front pages we needed. We sold through them. We made a little bit of money, not a ton, but we had a brand. Now we have 10,000 customers. So that's something you can start with and work with.
At the time, did Groupon allow you to have that customer data? Like, did you get the emails and stuff like that?
I did. Groupon preferred for everything to run through their payment processing, but I created a system through Google Docs, through Google Forms, and through Shopify just linking to a page, that people would have to enter their Groupon code as they did a $0 checkout, or maybe it was a $5 checkout just for shipping. And so that allowed me to keep all the customer data. I wouldn't say it was terribly useful, or I didn't use it terribly well.
Right.
But I did make sure I had that data. I knew the value of data. Now with Amazon, I have none of that customer data, but everything's fine. So it's okay. Eventually I bought out the other two partners, and actually, this is a weird part of the story. I was running out of cash. The first two product styles that I launched were starting to not sell very well and have a lot of warranty problems. So even as I was almost out of money, a guy my dad played Little League with had a friend living in Hong Kong who he told about my sunglasses company. He invited me out there. He gave me some presentation on like some futuristic city they were building. And I'm like, why are you showing me this? Why am I here? And he basically was trying to run some kind of Ponzi scheme where he would bring a company like mine that was just like a shell of a company, put it on these like penny stock things, sell shares of it to these Chinese people. They would cash out in dollars and something. That was the plan. And so while he was setting all that up, he gave me an $80,000 loan to go out, find a new supplier, and get a new style of sunglasses rolling. And I did that, and I started selling on Amazon. And then I started to make the Amazon machine turn. And so by the time he finished all the auditing and the application for the marketplace, whatever, I had made enough money to pay him back the amount of money that I borrowed. And then I just said, okay, I'm out. I'm done. We're not doing this anymore. So that was a pivotal but really weird wrinkle in the Woody story that I don't tell very often.
That's interesting. It's very interesting. I like it. And I had actually heard other people that had been propositioned basically the same thing. And from what I understood, it was a way to where the regulation on the Hong Kong stock market, like it was a way that the Chinese were able to, like people in China, I'm butchering it at this point, but I mean, it seemed like it was a way to where it's like the scrutiny, there wasn't the scrutiny there. And so they could do things with the money that they couldn't necessarily do inside China.
Yeah, like get around currency control, turn yuan into dollars.
Right.
Somewhere.
And definitely seemed like it was one of those things that seemed like everybody was doing, like it was not an uncommon thing to happen.
It was like a reverse merger.
Right.
And I was like, what?
Right. So exactly.
My little company with less than 100,000 in revenue, we're doing a reverse merger.
I do remember that though.
Okay.
And they were approaching, apparently, I mean, I'm sure they were approaching a lot of people, but it's like I've heard 2 or 3 different Amazon sellers tell me the exact same thing. Was there any contention around buying your first 2 partners out?
The first buyout was 2 of my friends, and they were running a sourcing company, and they were doing a lot of robbing Peter to pay Paul. They had a Ponzi scheme going that wasn't even profiting them. It was out of necessity because they couldn't finish paying for another order because they already ran out of money. So the new business that was coming in was paying for old orders. It was just horrible. So I knew they were doing this. So they were like, hey, Cory, we're just running low on cash. I was like, okay, well, I can buy you guys out of your share of Woodies. That'll help you get through the season. But whatever. So I did that. And then the Groupon guy, he just wasn't involved really. So just a couple years and he bought out. He didn't care at all. So, and man, it's great to own 100% of your own company. Like right now I'm invested in a couple of friends' companies and it's fine, but I could just sense that it doesn't feel that good when you don't own 100% of your company. Like you know that the work you're doing, you're only reaping 70% of the benefits or 60% or 40%. Like it's nice to fully own your own destiny. That's where Woody's is at.
So it's a lot of people who I call them business agnostic. It's like I'm a business agnostic person. Like I don't care how I'm making the money so much as long as it's fits within my own morality, of course.
Yeah.
But I don't try to, it's like Warehouse Republic is my baby. It's everything to me, but it's not who I am. Now with you are Woody's.
Yeah.
I mean, you embody it. You're the captain, you're everything. So from the time you started like really rolling on Amazon, when did that become like, when did you start to like really embrace that? And like, what was it little things, or was it just all like, no, from day one, I am going to embody this thing? Like, how did you enjoy, because it sounds like you saw the opportunity first and then you went into it. But did you always have this love for like Woody's and beach life and this and that? It's like, when did that kind of...
Yeah, I grew into it. So I had a friend, Nick, who was selling skincare items on Amazon. We had very similar lives. We're running an Amazon business. We're traveling to Bali and Thailand. We're meeting girls. We're just living the life we always wanted.
Yeah.
But when people ask you what you do, you got to answer the question. You can't fully get around it. So when he would answer his question, his was he was selling the dishwashing gloves that old ladies would like put moisturizer on before they go to sleep, and then put the gloves on so that when they wake up, their hands would be all soft and shit. And so he kept running into, whenever he would tell people what he did, they were like, oh, are these like serial killer gloves or something? Like it always like came into this dumb joke about like murdering people with his gloves. And he was like, no, it's just this weird niche I found. And so like, I feel like life and art, business is art. And I think I've always been an artist. I've really become one lately, but now I realize like how much art there is in business. And so I wanted to express myself through my business, because it's where I spend all my hours, right? Like we think about our businesses, we talk about our businesses, we dream about them, we plan for them. Mm-hmm. I mean, we represent them. They represent us everywhere they go. People look at you, people know you as a couple different hats, but one of them is, There's Mark, he runs Warehouse Republic. There's Cory, he runs Woody's. There's so-and-so, he invented Snapchat. So I wanted to make sure the thing that I represented me. Yeah. So then it helped. Then I kind of like leaned into it. So my cousin Clint, he's into classic cars. Yeah. And when I finally made a little money with Woody's, I was like, Clint, what could we do with some classic cars? Let's get a Woody. Like I knew Woody's existed when I started Woody's, the sunglasses brand, but I didn't know much about the car culture. Mm-hmm. So once we finally found a Woody in Oklahoma and started working on it together, I was like, wow, this is cool. Now it's classic cars. The Captain's Hat thing happened. Now it's California, beach. I mean, it all came together. I was myself, but I definitely leaned into Woody's as I created what Woody's was.
Right. And so you're still in Oklahoma at this point, or it's like
I was on the road,
but home base is like
home base. I really was baseless.
Really?
Yeah.
Where was your mail going?
Virtualpostmailbox.com, which is a distributed mailbox system.
Okay.
Yeah. Baseless.
All right. So, when we met, you had it was like you were just dipping your toes.
Just got my first apartment.
Just dipping your toes.
6 years.
Yeah. In Southern California.
Yeah.
And this is where I definitely feel like you call home now.
Yes.
What was so in that 6 years, like what was it that brought you back to like Los Angeles? What was it? I mean, brought you to Los Angeles, I should say.
It was a random arrival. It was my friend Nick, different Nick, was traveling here. He said, hey, come meet me here. I think I just went to Coachella. Okay. And then it was time to do a new photo shoot for Woody's. I had some new products. So I got on Wilhelmina website and I was like, hey, let me hire a model for today. I want to shoot some new content. Like, okay. So then next morning, everyone was hungover from a party we had. And I'm walking on the boardwalk and the guys are there playing chess. And I sit down and play chess for like 3 hours. We're just talking about life, the end of the world, just anything under the sun. And they said, man, you got a good vibe. You should move to Venice. I said, maybe I will. And they said, well, we know the lady who rents these apartments right behind us, and she has an opening today. And so I was like, I want to look at that. So went and looked at it and signed the lease that same day. So I just knew. I mean, it was 6 years of traveling places. And when you travel to a new beautiful place and it grabs you, you start to imagine yourself living there. Mm. But then like reality kind of sets in and you're like, no, I couldn't really root my life here. But when I discovered Venice, I was like, yeah, this is me. This is me. I want to live here.
So what was your philosophy during that 6 years? I mean, that's a very broad question, but I mean, specifically, like, were you just traveling to the next place that like you heard about or you saw? Because I mean, Instagram wasn't really that big of a thing at that point.
Airbnb was coming up though.
Airbnb was coming up.
Yeah. It was a result of my cousin Clint he works for American Airlines and I'm on his special flight list. So I had a superpower.
Yeah.
And what does a superhero do? They use their superpower. Mm-hmm. So I could hop from Miami to Hong Kong in a night if that was the move. So I pay attention who's where. Yeah, what's going on, where's the good seasons? Where can I really justify a trip? Okay, I need to go check on a supplier. Let's go spend a month or two in Hong Kong. Like, okay, it's summertime. Go to Europe. So my travel philosophy was, where are the good Airbnbs? Where's my money go really far? And who's there? So were you always I'm going to go there and I'm going to immerse myself in the culture, or were you ever like a strategic hit person? Like, going to go in there, 4 days on the ground, got 10 meetings to do, and I'm out. China became that. China became tough to really like sink into it. I don't know. Some cultures grab you. I didn't plan it before it happened. I was like, wherever I go, how am I feeling day by day? And it really helped me live life in the moment because I wasn't planning a span of time. I was just planning day to day. Like my suitcase was always half packed, like ready to go.
So when was your biggest like fuck moment? Like whenever with running Woody's, and I mean, let's say obviously running out of money and having to take a shady like $80,000 loan. That's a pretty good I'm sure you were in one of those moments around there. Like, what am I going to do? But let's say you've got a couple Amazons going, things are like just moving around, moving along. Excuse me. What was one of those moments where you're like, holy shit?
Holy shit, like this is going well, or holy shit, this is on fire?
Both.
Okay. So when I was staying in San Diego, I was staying with a friend. It was his birthday. I thought it'd be a good gesture to give him a pair of sunglasses. So I made a 99% discount code, 99% off discount code. I didn't click the right button that hid it from the detail page. And there was no quantity limits. It was just perfectly set up to get abused. So I sold out of 1,500 units in a matter of hours at 99% off. Huge losses. Amazon FBA, so freaky efficient that they sent out all the packages the next day, just on their way to customers. I didn't even realize what I'd done. I thought I was like, oh, great. I got all these sales. I thought because they don't really show the discounted part except for in the payout section. So that was oh fuck. Yeah. I called my mom. She was like sort of my business partner at the time. Like she did customer service emails. And I was like, Mom, this happened. And she was like, whoa, that's messed. That sucks. And she's like, all right, what are you going to do? And she helped me find out the address that a big order, like 700 of the pieces went to one address. Somebody had that much gall to order that many. So I camped out in front of their house for a day waiting for that delivery to arrive. And so I did. It did. And I went and knocked on the door, and there was these two kids, like 18 and 19 years old. That was their business, was finding mistake pricing and buying them out and then flipping them. And so knocked on their door, said, hey kids, these are my glasses. I'm going to take these. And they were like, yes, sir. It's okay. And then I sent those back into Amazon and sold them at full price. And that kept the wheel turning.
That's awesome. And then when was the first moment like this is working?
The big pop. I was in Rio at the Olympics with my friend Aji, and I sent out this big email blast and I set the price to 20, which is my most aggressive ever on Amazon. and I sold like 5 or 10,000 in a day while we were just hanging at the beach. And that was when I fully understood that, like, wow, this is an algorithm. As long as I feed it the right information, the right pieces, then this is going to go and this is going to last a long time. So that was the first time that I sold a lot. And then I was a part of Amazon FBA. So everything worked. Mm-hmm. Right. So I had a big pop with my other company, Ticker, but the fulfillment process, like the scaling, it couldn't scale. But this one, like I sold, I don't know, 300 units in one day and everything sent out just fine. And that was when I was like, whoa, I can do this. This is going to be big.
Yeah. So now Rio's 2016, is that right?
2016.
Yep. So now we are 6 years later.
Yeah.
You've got probably 100 styles at
Yeah.
this point, somewhere in there. Are you seeing it? And I mean, I remember we talked probably 3 years ago. Said, how was your season? You said, season was good. We hit this number. This is the number we kind of want to float at. We think it's a good number. Mm-hmm. Do you have you continued growing? And if you have exceeded, the number that you mentioned at the time, have you been able to scale those processes up, or did you have to add any more processes? Like,
as I was growing, and I was just a one-person company, mm-hmm. it almost became an experiment. How big can a one-person company get? Mm-hmm. And so I started making all my decisions, designing the organization under this one-person thing. I have a virtual assistant. Her name's Nona. She's been with me a long time, and she's very helpful. She's a Swiss Army knife of doing stuff in the background. And now my mom does almost all the shipping, ordering, and customer service. So when we talked 2 years ago, I think sales were somewhere between 2 and 3 million, and sales are still in that range. I've increased my margin quite a bit, but that kind of became like the natural limit that I bumped against, that if I did go any bigger than this, or like really endeavor to go bigger than this, I need to expand my team. It needs to be like the ordering team needs to be its own team. Inventory management needs its own, like there's more roles. Hmm. And so I found this to be like the natural ideal spot for me. Like this amount of work is enough. I'm actually going to cut some SKUs as we get into this next season. So this is the size. I think we're selling 60,000 to 70,000 units per year. So that's how many sunglasses are flowing through from the supplier to shipping to Warehouse Republic to Amazon FBA into customers, and that wheel going around. I think this is the natural limit.
So your ways of thinking about, like, I mean, the one-man experiment and kind of identifying these. This is how big we can be this way. And if we want to get bigger, then I need to add this. Those frameworks are seemingly pretty well defined. Are those all, just gut and your own line of thinking, or were there some influences that kind of got you to like think in that kind of like that compartmentalized way?
4-hour work week was like the original blueprint of like, okay, how can you create a muse? And a muse is the business, the money machine that provides enough capital to do the other things you want to do in life. So I have a friend, Michelle, who started businesses almost exactly the same time. And she's gone on to this incredible success. But her business has scaled. She's had to reinvent her business 5 times already. And I see the toll it takes on life. I mean, I wanted to make sure that, like, the point of starting a business is to get to a point where you enjoy your life, right? Like, I didn't want to create a company like Woody's where now I've created myself a really nice job as the e-commerce manager for a small sunglasses brand. That's not my dream. My dream is out there somewhere else. So I read this somewhere, like, you have to be really careful what you choose to make money at, because if you succeed, it's hard to separate yourself from it, right? Like, there's a cap. Like, if you become so successful at it, you'll have a hard time leaving it. And I didn't want that to happen. I kind of felt it when I got to the point where I bumped up against, okay, if I'm going to go further from here, I need to change. And I didn't want to. I wanted to try whole brand new things, like a new slate.
So it's interesting because you leaned into the Woodies, the captain thing.
I haven't worn a captain's hat in like a year, man.
But to that point, you kind of like leaned into it. You enjoyed it, and it was this phase. But it's still very much there.
Yeah.
But then when did you? It was a conscious, just like, okay, that's great. The image is there. The brand is there. I've got it's working. Now I really want to focus on these other things, or was it just more of an organic process? You started dabbling a little bit here, and then like where were some of those kind of triggers that started to pull you back to that being an artist more than? And I mean, you were always an artist, because I agree with you. Business is an art, not in the same way that painting is, but there's an art form to it.
Yeah.
And so how did you basically get on that off ramp of more painting and stuff like that, or on ramp, I should say?
This story cannot be told without my mom. So my mom is an incredibly smart woman, and she's never really had the vehicle to like express all of her skill just in the business world. I mean, she's smart, she's motivated, she's kind to people. Like, she took over customer service, and that became a strength of Woody's instead of a weakness. And then the more I started to like introduce her to the other systems, I mean, she was amazed at first. She was like, "Cory, you run all this? You know how all these things work together?" Like, yeah, Mom, this is what I created with Woody's. She was just fascinated by it. So she kept being more curious. She's like, "Well, how does this part work?" And I could explain it to her. And she's like, "Well, how does this part connect to this other part?" Explain that to her. And then I was like, "Mom, do you want to like run this?" And she's like, "Okay, I don't know. It could be fun." So over the course of 2 years, I mean, we really went slowly, like piece by piece. But without her continued just like curiosity and just her investing her time and energy, and then she could see that it allowed me to go and focus and flourish in some other ways. Mm-hmm. That she just her mom instincts combined with her business instincts, and she just like sees it as a puzzle to solve, and she's having fun solving it. So I'm really happy to let her like have the keys and run with it. So that's how it all kind of happened. Without mom, I would have had to sell the business to achieve this level of autonomy.
So kind of follow-up question to that. Woody's is gone tomorrow. What do you do?
Book of questions.
Yeah.
I fully focus on the book of questions. I become an author. Yeah.
What's your favorite question from the book of questions at this point?
I just came up with it spontaneously while I was interviewing my aunt and uncle. This was several years ago. Is falling in love more like winning the lottery or learning to play the piano? It's a perfectly balanced, beautiful question, because falling in love is some elements of both of those things. So which one do you perceive more weight in? Says a lot about you, but it's not exactly clear what it says about you. It reveals your attitudes on love. It reveals your attitudes on luck, like luck versus destiny. It's just a beautifully balanced question. It's my favorite question.
I like that. Yeah. I think with that, this is a great place to kind of stop. Right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's excellent. It was excellent.
All right, cool.
Love you, man. Love you too. Yep.
Awesome.